You're watching Single Process with Joe and Bob. We created this video series to help you navigate through the difficult process of divorce. We hope this makes your journey a little easier. Our topic today is how to pick a lawyer and to start the process.
Yeah, because that lawyer...
How did you find your mediator since you went that route? What did you do?
You ask around, you ask friends, but honestly, I mean, your divorce attorney seems to turn into like your therapist. I think there's a lot of value
and
in
your confidant, right?
Yes, yes.
You're exposing everything to them, and it's somebody you need to know that's going to be competent and really help you through this.
I think it's important to screen a few, and we'll talk about that. So.
Well, I don't know how to do that, so we're going to get Eric Broder to tell us.
Eric Broder is a founding partner with Broder and Orland in Westport and Greenwich, Connecticut. He's a seasoned litigator with over 20 years of experience in family law. He also serves as a special master to the Superior Courts. That's a big deal. Thank you, Eric, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Eric, since you were conflicted out for me, couldn't pick you, but how do you pick a lawyer?
People think go online, the old days checking the yellow pages. The first thing is ask people. Ask people
Okay. That's
who
what we
their
did.
lawyer was. And if you're not comfortable asking somebody because you have a personal relationship and don't want to share maybe that you're thinking of divorce, for example, ask a trusted professional. Maybe it's your therapist if you have one, your primary doctor, maybe it's your accountant, your financial planner. These people, we all run somewhat in the same circles and run into each other. They are going to give you probably a better idea as far as who they think you should consider hiring.
Okay.
Is there anything you should do, like read news articles online? Like if you're picking a financial planner, you might, Google them and see if there are any negative reviews, or is there any case? I mean, should you see if there are any actions brought against them by the bar associations?
You can look at that. Everybody Googles everybody all the time anyway now, so that's absolutely going to happen. I would be a little bit cautious to those things because lawyers aren't restaurants or hotels where the meal was bad. My
write a review.
I always think a personal reference is best. I mean, I wouldn't have knee surgery I wouldn't type in kneesurgeonnearme.com and pick somebody, right? I would make sure that I had a personal reference because it is probably the most important financial transaction of your life, a divorce, and also by far, if there are issues with your children, the most important issues with your children, for your children and family.
You hear these stories all the time where your future ex-spouse runs off and talks to 3 attorneys, and all of a sudden they're off the table for you. I think they call it. What do they call that?
Like conflicting out, or
conflicting out.
That's what I started with at the beginning of the episode, right?
Or if anyone watched The Sopranos years ago, the Tony Soprano rule, because he conflicted out all of New Jersey for his wife in the episodes to get divorced, hire a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some people have done that. I've heard stories of people that have interviewed 8, 9, 10 attorneys, and in smaller communities, that can have an impact because maybe there are only 5 or 6 really good top, family law type attorneys. It's a little bit, it's untrue. You can't automatically conflict a lawyer out just by spending an hour with them. It depends on what you tell them, the level of what you tell them, and also if you go around and meet a bunch of lawyers and your spouse wants to challenge it, your spouse will likely prevail because there are cases where judges say, nice try. You can't prevent your spouse from hiring a good lawyer.
They'll look through your actions and see what your intentions were.
That's exactly
potentially.
Right. So it's not as simple as I'm going to call these 5 lawyers on the phone for 5 minutes and then they're conflicted out of my case. That's not. But there's an important thing when considering a lawyer that I think people need to know. Who's going to work on my case? Number one, is more than one lawyer going to help me on my case in your office? Mm-hmm. What's the role of the supervising or senior lawyer? And why should I pay a senior lawyer their rates to do things that a lower lawyer may be able to do at a less expensive rate? And I think people should be cognizant of how that firm approaches handling their clients because there are certain tasks that a junior lawyer can handle just as competently as a senior lawyer in the same amount of time.
And for a significantly less hourly rate.
Exactly. And will paralegals be used, for example? And people don't always know that. There are some great solo practitioners out there, but if they're on trial for 2 weeks, how do I get a hold of you if something happens in my case? They're not on a beach somewhere. They're literally on trial. You need to know, how do I get a hold of my lawyer? What happens if I have an emergency? And also, I think some lawyers, what I might consider an emergency, or what I should say is what you might consider an emergency, I might think is not an emergency at all. But make sure that lawyer sees things from your perspective and understands what you define as an emergency or an important situation is and is responsive and gets back to you.
I think responsiveness is a big point, Eric. I found that I wanted to be able to, if something came up that was meaningful to me, it may not be an emergency, as you said to my lawyer, but
Right.
it felt really important to me in the moment, and I wanted access on some level.
Yeah.
And that's really important, and you need to know that you're going to have that, or that they'll get back to you and set up a time. I mean, people sometimes fire attorneys. It happens actually a lot more in family law or divorce cases, I think, than other areas of law. And the number one complaint is responsiveness. And I always joke, I love being the second lawyer in if that's the reason they're, getting rid of their lawyer, because we will respond, and I make sure we respond very, very quickly to address their concerns or needs.
Yeah.
All right, so now you found a lawyer.
Yeah.
What do we do
Hopefully.
next?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well,
Find a
before you
good
do that,
one.
there's
we're
one
not
more
moving on
important
yet,
question
sorry.
you should ask. There's a
Yes.
trick question when you're consulting with a lawyer. Always ask, how much will my case cost? Because the answer shouldn't be $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. The answer is, I don't know. Because they should give a range, but the answer should be, I don't know. Depends on who the other lawyer is generally, and depends on maybe their relationship, what that other lawyer's approach is and strategy is. You can give a range, but if they tell you it's a drop-dead $2,500 fee and you'll be divorced in 6 months,
You know that's
You know that.
Okay.
Run.
run.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. Okay, so now you're lawyered up.
Yep.
Where do we go from here? What are the top 5 things we need to know?
Well, first of all, the number one most important thing, get a support network in place. I mean,
Who's in that?
don't do it alone. Number one, there are divorce support groups, and you'd be shocked. Call a church, call a community center.
Okay.
Get to see other people that you can talk to about your experiences. It usually makes people feel a lot better. Or a friend or a family member, whoever it is, and keep them involved. So that doesn't really directly involve your lawyer, but you'll save yourselves a lot of money talking to your friends who are going to be there. Instead of
X $100 an hour.
That's right.
Well, in 2,500, we just established that.
I would gather as much financial information as you can. The more work you do and the more organized you are, the less expensive your case is. I tell clients, I've had clients come in with paper bags and dump stuff on my table.
Just leave your boxes.
And they go, it's all up to you. Well, that's just a waste of money. We make the money, we don't care, we'll do it, but it's not smart. Come in organized.
Okay.
Tax returns are easy to get. You can always call your accountant. If you file joint returns, I don't care that your spouse was the main contact with the accountant. Call that accountant. Say, you can talk to my attorney.
If your
and give him
signature's
or her-
on it, you have the right to see it?
Absolutely. You file
Okay.
a joint tax return. Yep.
All right.
Or financial statements, go to the bank, gather all the information. Your lawyer should be telling you right up front what you're going to need. I mean, the first thing I do is I hand my client a list of everything I would ask of them if I represented their spouse.
Oh,
And I do
okay.
that up front. So there's no excuse for them not knowing they were supposed to give me something.
Okay.
So just, here you go, grab all this stuff.
And if you're not good at getting that information?
Tell me who I can get it from. You don't have a problem with your tax returns or
Okay.
your business records? Give me your accountant's information. Your financial documents? Give me your financial planner's information. Or you know what? Sit down with my paralegal right now, plug your password in on the computer, and let's print
And
out
we'll
all the
pull it
documents.
down. I love that. I love
That'd be a
that.
likely scenario. Yeah.
Right? Because it meets somewhere between me having to go home and figure this out myself.
But
right?
a paralegal versus the senior attorney.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Terrific.
Be aware there are gaps in your case too as the case starts, and sometimes people think we start a case and it's a lot of things are going to happen. That's the rarity. Maybe it happens sometimes when people are cut someone off financially or there's issues with children, but understand there'll be gaps. But ask your attorney, keep me posted, even if it's every couple weeks, a quick tap to let me know in an email. Everything's quiet, just an update.
So don't assume that because you're not hearing anything, you've been forgotten.
That's
is
right.
What you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I say no news is good news in certain cases because it does take time to gather the requisite financial information.
And I'm also sensitive about contacting the attorney at all because I feel like you're billing me in blocks of time, right? So if I'm pounding out emails to look for updates.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I would think a quick update from a lawyer to say everything's quiet, nothing's happened.
Okay, is one thing. Yeah.
Shouldn't be billed if it's a quick 2-minute email. Maybe some lawyers do, but there might be something that lawyer, you're kind of reminding the lawyer too. I mean, this is your life, and I think people sometimes feel intimidated, which is wrong, by their attorneys. I've heard that before, which you shouldn't. You should feel that you have open access to, and stay on top of your case, and not every day. I mean, that could be much, obviously, but every couple weeks, if nothing's happened, reach out, email me, call me, ping me, whatever it is, and know where you are and where you stand.
Okay.
And also, I think it's important to ask the attorney what's next. So you can start thinking.
Okay.
You know, I believe no surprises. Like, surprises are the worst thing that happen. So I always try to keep my client apprised of what the next step is that we'll be dealing with, so that while they're there working on this step, they know where we're going to be headed. Now, things happen all the time in cases, and unexpected things happen, and we deal with them. But you can kind of blaze the path for that.
It's nice to know what the game plan is. It's nice to know where your next step is,
Totally
what's
agree.
coming down the road.
Yeah.
Managing expectations. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the most important thing. I mean, you should have a lawyer, as they learn more of your picture, give you legitimate ranges of what's going to happen. And if you're not sure what your lawyer's telling you, take another consultation with another lawyer.
Okay.
I mean, that's
Is that's like, I feel like that's going to the hairdresser and then, you know, switching hairdressers
I
and
know.
getting caught.
so.
That's
right?
I can tell you
Do you know
personally.
what I mean?
I know.
But personally, I mean, I know in a case, especially as we get to settlement time, if my client is a little unsure, I advise them to get another opinion.
Really?
And it's just like a doctor before surgery. I mean, you're not going to go in and, God forbid, you have something really serious that needs to be addressed. You likely would get a second opinion.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, I rather, and it's worth
to do that.
I would never think you'd recommend it.
Well, look, I don't want someone coming to me later on saying, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you
Yeah.
didn't, or I told you this, you didn't say this. So
You'd rather head it off.
I'd
It
rather
might
head it
actually
off.
move someone closer to settlement and closer to resolution if
Absolutely.
they know that somebody else is going to give them the same advice.
I
That's
agree.
right. Or conflicting advice that then you can address with that client to say your opinion on it. It's
Absolutely.
very, I mean, you hear of cases all the time. I mean, you were both married for a long time, and those decisions you made impact maybe not the rest of your life, but certainly the rest of
many,
your
many
children's
years.
lives. Yeah, or
Totally.
the rest of your
Many,
children's
many
minority. Yes.
lives.
So you want to do it right.
Absolutely.
You want to do it the right way. You do not want to be back in court if you can avoid it after your divorce is over.
Okay.
Post-judgment issues, which is a whole other topic, I'm sure.
Yes.
And we can go into that sometime, but that's something you want to avoid.
Okay. I love it.
I love it.
Anything we
Eric,
missed?
Just
Good?
terrific.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Such great
Thank
and
you.
things and totally unexpected things. Those
Totally
would not have
unexpected.
been
Yep.
on my list of top 5 things, so I love it.
Good.
Well done.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Things we
Thank you for
haven't
having
covered.
me. I
For more
appreciate it.
information on this and other topics that are helpful, log on to singleprocess.me.